Describing a modern predicament, sociologist Hartmut Rosa writes, "In a way, we moderns resemble a painter who is forever concerned about improving their tools, the colors and brushes, the air condition and lighting, the canvas and easel, but never really starts to paint. No good painter will act in such self-sabotaging way. No professional will. And yet, when we step out of our work roles, many of us fixated on means to life and often forget to live our life. Life itself turns into mere means to life. Many are reasons why we slave away. Good, it works. Many are reasons why we slave away in the prison house of means. A key one is that we are confused about the most important question of our lives. We are confused about the nature of the good. In our age, the good has been privatized. It is not just in pluralistic societies. There are many divergent visions of the good. The good itself has become a private matter. To figure out what we should do with our life, we deliberate about talents and interests, we consult family and friends, and what is the one piece of advice that we always get? Not do the greatest good for the greatest number, not love God and neighbors. It is pursue your dream, follow your desires. The privatization of the good puts much weight on our desires and dreams. They rule. But our desires and dreams change because our world is changing, and while pursuing our dreams, we compete with others. To be ready for a new dream and to win the race, we need good tools, the means to achieve our goals. That's why so much of our personal and social libido is tied to the acquisition of economic, reputational, and bodily capital. This is echo of Pierre Bourdieu. Now, means are tricky things. Concentrate on them, and they will morph into ends. Consider money. It's worth nothing in itself. Its value is entirely in being the most potent of means. And just for that reason, it is the most important goal for many. As it is with money, so it is often with know-how, with fame, with looks, and so on. Our means are our ends. Now, the strange behavior of Rosa's painter now starts to make sense. Or does it? In the grip of her fixation on the tools of her craft, Rosa's painter looks in the mirror and sees her face. But it looks curiously hamster-like. She looks around, and the flat studio walls have carved in on her. The floor beneath her is unstable, shifting, and she finds herself running to keep the balance. But for all her running, she's going nowhere. Commenting on this phenomenon, Kenneth Galbraith has years ago said, "Among the many models of the good society, no one has urged the hamster wheel." And yet, most of us are in the wheel. Means are important, indispensable. But the search for the right means will land us in that hamster wheel if we don't ask and answer a prior question, which is not about means, but about goals. What dreams are worth dreaming, or what kind of life is worth living? There is no more important search than the quest for the good life, a life that is worthy of our shared humanity. We are spiritually free and unfinished animals. That indeterminacy at the core of our being is part of our beauty. But it comes with a risk. It opens us to the possibility of failing as humans. In the question of the good, at stake is our very humanity. We can fail in trivial ways, but we can also fail in ways that are catastrophic, both for us and those around us. Albert Speer was Hitler's architect. Hitler recruited him before he turned 30 with the promise that he would be able to design buildings like of which had not been seen for 2,000 years. Seeing himself, above all, as an architect, Speer said yes, and participated in some of the most egregious crimes in history. Singular devotion to his career made him an exceptionally good architect. If you are into this type of architecture, I personally am not. Singular devotion to his career made him also an exceptionally bad human being. Even if we succeed as doctors and artists, furniture makers and politicians, we may fail in big or small ways to live to the inherent worthiness of our humanity. The answer to the question of means consists of facts. The answer to the question of goals consists in basic values. It names the good we should pursue. But how do I determine where I should point the arrow of my life's longing? Not by searching in my inner depths. At best, I will find there a dream which may or may not be a dream of a life that is truly good and worth living. Consulting sciences would not help much either. They are fantastically smart and eloquent in describing what is and how the world functions, including our dream-generating psyche. But they have little to say about what kind of life is good and worth living. Together with some colleagues of mine, I teach a course at Yale called Life Worth Living. We have found that a promising way to start the quest for a good life is by engaging in truth-seeking conversations guided by philosophical and religious teachers of wisdom, both ancient and modern. If you are committed to a path already, I invite you to do the same alone, or even better, with friends. If you need help, pick up a book that we happen to have written. It might not be the best, but it's one available right now. It's called Life Worth Living, a guide to what matters most. But above all, let's go to the sages. Not as we would to smorgasbord to assemble a plate of wisdom nuggets we like, but let's go to them seeking truth about the good. In their company, may each of us find the courage to pick up the brush and paint with our lives something truly good for ourselves, for our neighbors, and for our planet. Thank you.
So it was really an amazing set of presentation that left me thinking. And I'm going to start with the person that spoke first, which is Miroslav. So Miroslav, so we exist in a pluralistic society. So, which means that we each have our own private conception and definition of the word good. How do the different ideas of good relate to each other? And how can there be a discussion or a negotiation of the discrepancies?
It's really interesting. I mean, you invite me to talk to you about the course that we teach at Yale, which is where we present maybe 7 accounts of the life that is worth living in various traditions. They may be religious, they may be secular, contemporary philosopher, ancient philosophers, whatever that might be. And the interesting thing is that even if you ask the question, each of these traditions makes a truth claim. Now, we want to take the truth claim seriously, and then you open up the discussion. You think you would have a kind of brawl in the class, but you don't. you have a civilized discussion about things that are so fundamental to us. And at the same time, it's possible to have this conversation that teases out and that contrast and that kind of ask also of existential impact of those traditions. So I don't think our difficulty is really discussing some of this. Oh, thank you. This can be on the ground. Wisdom is gone from there. It's right. Yeah.
So it's what you were saying. So instead of means, it's facts. Because I was thinking then it's the proof in the pudding. It's to put people in front of the kid drowning in the pond that really makes our differences come alive. So discussion is always civilized, but then...
Well, it ends up not being civilized when you're outside of the classroom. When the key life interests are at stake. But that's very interesting then, right? Because we can kind of have agreements in principle on various things, or even agreements to kind of disagree, to see that we have overlapping consensus. And yet when it comes to actually living it and implementing it, that's where interests kick in a major way and conflicts arise. And I think we have to have ways in which we can have almost like a meta-values that are values of conversation, of engagement mutually, so that the kind of relationship that of which Bastian spoke could be fostered, rather than bringing closer to people creates only more tensions between them. And some of these, I think, where traditions do agree, is a sense of honoring the other person. And I think they can be teased out. Some of them can be pushed, so to speak, in function of conflicts. They have been disregarded, and these various aspects, I think we need to elevate, nurture in our relationships. Yeah.
Thank you.
As I heard all your words and ideas, I couldn't help but thinking of the relationship between what we understand of for good and power. Like, is good what the power structures or institutions or people with power kind of define for us, and how power plays this understanding within relationships with each other, with the planet, with other species, how it wires what we understand for charity and when we decide to do it, and how it will ultimately tell us what is a life worth living.
Is there a question that you wanted to ask, or?
Ideally, I would hope each one could say a bit about it, but I understand.
And let's say Erica, and then
I would
Miroslav.
say yes.
Yeah, Miroslav. Yeah, yeah.
I think that in a classical religious and philosophical traditions, certainly ancient ones, the good was always construed actually in certain kind of contrast to the power. So you have a statement, political power. So you have, for instance, statements recently. Archbishop of Canterbury, former, has said that, say in his case, as a Christian theologian, Christians should be unreliable allies to the power. They should be committed to the good, right? And the power structures have their own interests that are being defended. And so that the good becomes a mode of assessing deployment of power and then standing in the relationship to power. Obviously, you need to have certain kind of power also to be able to act in a good way, to be able to embrace the good. So contrast is not complete power more generally and the good, but certainly kind of political, culturally dominant forms of power and the modes of good are in contrast. You see that in the life of Socrates, you see that in the life of the Buddha, you see it in the life of Jesus. There are many examples of that you can see.
So this is a little bit for going back to Paula, what you had shown. Initially, I thought was very provocative, one slide where you talked about universals of some sort. universals that could be maybe aesthetic or form-based that could be defined, let's say, universally as good? And how do we negotiate that with the idea of cultural diversity and diversity of perspectives and the cultural baggage that comes with evaluating what's good? So that's a question that maybe is open to a lot of people, but
who wants to take this question? Miroslav, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, just maybe a brief comment. I think that we do have two kind of contrasting values. On the one hand, we have a value of the particularity, particular experience, particular person, particular experience at particular time. And deeper we go into it, the kind of richer we feel the life is. On the other hand, we are all connected. We live on the single planet. We are in many ways a single humanity. And then to lose the kind of the universal would be, in a sense, also at the same time to betray the particular, right? Because you would create suddenly those individuals that are constantly at odds with one another. And so the great question is, how does one mediate between the particularity of experiences and of lives and the commonality that is de facto actually always there? And what kind of modes of relating do we develop so that we can bridge between the two? Even in our conversation on the screen, Rossi was emphasizing these individual particular experiences of people and cultures, and your friend was emphasizing the common good, and there has to be a planetary common good. And I think we have to find ways to hold the two together. I would say also that the great traditions have sought to do that. They might not have done it always in the best way, but kind of emphasis on particularity. I'll just end with a little note of a Muslim mystic, Ibn Arabi. So the Bible for the Muslim, the Quran for the Muslim, or for any biblical text, they seem to be this holy thing and kind of imposes itself as universal. And he also believed that, but at the same time, he said, if I read the same passage twice, and it means the same thing to me, and it means the same thing to me, I have not read it right. That is to say, because I myself am always in the flux of time. And therefore you have here, for instance, with Ibn Arabi, you have this mediation already of something universal with something particular, time-bound, at this time, this place, this person.